Good morning, fellas. Well, it's morning here in Australia. I love the comments, Joseph and Hugh and Mike. Thank you for the deep reflections, little bit by little bit in this book of Galatians. Book of Galatians was pivotal to the church that I belonged to many years ago, coming out of its legalism, its Sabbath keeping, its rule keeping, its stifling existence. I was reflecting on this verse and noticed something at the very end of the verse in the NIV study Bible I've got here, and that's the quotation mark that began way back in verse 14. Paul was talking to Peter. Now, apparently some commentators end the quotation between Paul and Peter at the end of verse 14 and then goes back verse 15 to 21, a discourse back to the Galatians. I don't think that's right, actually, because verse 15, Paul is saying, we who are Jews by birth and not Gentile sinners. And that reeks of Paul's masterful way. And you can just picture him talking to Peter in a context where there are the law-keeping Jews and there are Gentile believers, and Paul is just skewering Peter by using this term, we who are Jews by birth and not Gentile sinners. And with whoever the translators were of this, I tend to agree that verse 21 is the end of Paul's discourse to Peter in front of the Judaizers. And the only reflection I wanted to add is just imagine that you were Peter and Paul is hitting you with all of this. And Paul is saying to you in front of everybody, I do not set aside the grace of God. For if righteousness could be gained through the law, just imagine yourself as Peter. This is a Pharisee telling you, again, how many times do you have to be told? If righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing, and Peter was the one who saw him die, who went through that whole week leading up to Christ's Passover death. Oh, brothers, there's so many things there. I mean, Peter is every one of us falling. Hugh, I think you mentioned that we fall back into the law. And even the disciple who became the head of the church, appointed by Jesus himself, kept stumbling back into law, drawn back into it, tempted back into it, swayed back into it. And Paul had to very powerfully say, we cannot set aside the grace of God. It's one or the other. It can't be both. And Mike, I love this verse because this verse is the one there in all of Paul's writings that says it's one or the other. You can't have a bit of each. You can't have Christ plus a little bit of law to make you a little bit more perfect. No, Christ made you perfect by his death. And yeah, I'm looking forward to chapter 3 and looking forward to more comments and how I love the cross, the only thing that could rescue me from my sin. Nothing in the law could do it at all. Nothing. God bless you, brothers.